This is the final known recording of Daniel Whitaker, a man who just days before his disappearance began receiving phone calls from a number he didn't recognize, a number that would later be traced back to a source no one could logically explain. His own, he answered at 3:02 a.m., alone in his apartment, lights off, curtains drawn. According to the logs, the call lasted 17 seconds. There was no trace of the caller, no audio saved, just the faint hum of the connection, and then silence. Within 3 minutes, all outgoing signals from Daniel's phone ceased. At 3:07, the internal camera on his laptop activated. The video shows Daniel standing still, completely still, facing the screen, unmoving, blinking only once. He doesn't speak. He doesn't react. At 3:09, the screen goes dark. That was the last moment anyone saw him. The official report calls it a missing person case, but for those who've reviewed the footage, for those who've listened to the raw call logs, that explanation never felt complete. What Daniel heard on the other end of that call, it wasn't just a voice. It wasn't even a message. It was something else entirely, something he never should have picked up. And once he did, nothing was ever the same. What happened after that call, no one has been able to explain. Daniel Whitaker wasn't famous. He wasn't even particularly well known. But in the corners of the internet where people look for things they shouldn't, his name means something, or at least it used to. He lived alone in a quiet rental unit on the edge of Manton, a town with one grocery store, 2 traffic lights, and almost no digital footprint. Daniel liked it that way. According to neighbors, he rarely left the house during the day, but his lights were always on at night. He ordered groceries online, paid rent early, avoided interaction, and still he left a trail. He kept a private blog, mostly unpublished. The entries we've recovered were time-stamped between midnight and 4 a.m. Entries that detailed strange occurrences he claimed were happening inside his apartment. Unplugged electronics turning on by themselves, phones ringing with no number on the screen, messages left on voicemails in a voice that sounded like his, but slightly off. He never called it paranormal. He didn't make any claims. He simply documented, line by line, timestamp by timestamp. On May 2nd at 2:54 a.m., Daniel posted a message to his private feed. It wasn't long, just one sentence. "If I go missing, it's because I answered." 8 minutes later, at exactly 3:02 a.m., he received a phone call. The screen showed his name, his number. He picked up. Surveillance footage from a camera set up in his office, something he installed weeks earlier due to the disturbances, shows him staring at the screen for nearly 15 seconds before moving. He hesitates. His hand trembles slightly as he reaches for the phone. And then he answers. He doesn't speak during the call, at least not that we can hear, but his face changes. His expression slowly empties out. His posture slackens. His pupils widen as if reacting to something just out of frame. The call lasts only 17 seconds. What happens next is more difficult to describe. Daniel sets the phone down. He doesn't end the call. He doesn't move. He stands completely still, staring directly at his laptop camera. No blinking, no movement. He stays like that for 1 minute and 52 seconds, and then the screen cuts to black. No forced entry. No signs of a struggle. His front door remained locked from the inside. His keys still on the counter. The only thing missing was Daniel. What's stranger is what didn't vanish. His computer remained active. Files were untouched. But someone or something had opened a terminal window. On the screen, 5 words typed themselves slowly, 1 letter at a time. They read, "It wasn't a wrong number." To this day, the phone company has no record of any outgoing or incoming call to Daniel's number at that time. No data, no logs, just silence. But the video exists. The moment he picked up, the way he stood frozen, the faint sound of breathing, too faint, almost filtered, like listening to someone through layers of static. That recording has never been explained, and Daniel Whitaker has never been seen again. Before the call, before the camera footage, Daniel Whitaker's life was quiet. If there's a word for it, it was precise. He lived alone in apartment 203, a one-bedroom corner unit in a 3-story building on the edge of town. A town that didn't ask questions, a building with paper-thin walls, and neighbors who rarely made eye contact in the halls. He worked remotely in IT support, logged on at midnight, logged off before sunrise. Food deliveries were left at the door, trash taken out once a week, always at the same time. Anyone watching him closely would see no irregularities, no signs of distress, nothing unusual, except for what he did in the hours in between. Daniel kept journals, not about his thoughts, not about his feelings. He recorded signals, frequencies, he tracked them, cataloged them, often down to the second. He listened to number stations, those cryptic shortwave broadcasts that repeat coded sequences in robotic voices, sometimes in foreign languages, sometimes just tones. He downloaded phone logs from abandoned cell towers, scraped data from unused wireless protocols, created spreadsheets to track anomalies no one else seemed to notice. To most, it might sound obsessive, but to Daniel, it was routine. It wasn't about fear, it was curiosity. He had an ear for patterns, for things that didn't match. He once wrote, "If it repeats, it's alive. If it repeats wrong, it's trying to speak." The first missed call came on March 27th, 3:41 a.m. Unknown caller. No message left, no number logged. The same happened the next night, and the night after that. On April 2nd, a voicemail came through, nothing distinct, just hiss, low static, a pattern Daniel recognized immediately, rhythmic surges peaking at regular intervals. He enhanced the audio, slowed it down, cleaned the waveform. Underneath the noise, a voice emerged. One word, his name, spoken slowly, faintly, almost as if exhaled. He didn't answer the call, but he saved the message, logged it, filed it under a folder labeled Echo. That folder would eventually contain 9 separate recordings, all from different dates, all with the same voice. He called me one night, said he'd been listening to his messages and thought he heard himself whispering, but he didn't remember recording anything. He said it didn't feel like hearing a recording, it felt like overhearing himself. By mid-April, Daniel's behavior started to shift. His neighbor, Ms. Clark, who lived directly below him, recalled hearing movement at odd hours. Furniture scraping across the floor at 2 or 3 in the morning. Once, she said, she heard him pacing, then stopping, then pacing again, always stopping at the same spot, right above her bedroom ceiling. He told a colleague over email that he'd begun hearing tones coming through the walls, that his smoke detector would chirp at exactly 3:02 a.m., despite having no battery installed. Daniel didn't panic. He documented, he updated his logs. He began sleeping with a microphone turned on, kept his screen recording even when he wasn't at his desk, installed motion-activated cameras in every room. In one clip, now missing from his hard drive but recovered from cloud cache, Daniel is seen sleeping. The room is still. The lights are off. And yet, there is audio, barely perceptible, a voice whispering from the phone left on the desk, a voice repeating a single sentence over and over. "Please pick up." By April 30th, the frequency of the calls increased. 5 in one night, all from unknown numbers, all with no metadata. He tried blocking the numbers, but they always came through. One bypassed airplane mode, Another arrived when his SIM card was removed. His last email to anyone was sent on May 1st. It contained no subject line, no text, just an audio file. That file, when opened, plays nothing but silence for 13 seconds. Then, suddenly, a faint clicking sound, followed by a voice whispering one final word. Answer. May 2nd, 3 a.m. Daniel received a phone call, but this time it wasn't unknown. It wasn't blank metadata or a country code he didn't recognize. The name that appeared on his screen was his own. His name, his number, displayed in full. It rang only once, then stopped. He stared at the screen for nearly a minute, according to the internal camera log. Then he backed up the call history, took a screenshot, documented the timestamp, 3:01:12. He sent a message to his friend at 3:02 a.m. My own number just called me. I didn't answer. But what disturbed him more wasn't the call itself. It was what came next. At 3:03 a.m., the same number rang again. Again, it was his. Same digits, same name, same ringtone. Only this time, something about it sounded wrong. A subtle pitch warble, almost imperceptible. He answered. According to the audio pulled from his desk recorder, the call connected instantly. There was no dial tone, no delay, just silence, then static, then something else. Don't speak, just listen. He's watching. Daniel doesn't respond, at least not out loud. The recording shows no verbal reply, but his body language shifts, shoulders tense. He looks toward the camera just for a moment, then straight at the phone. He holds it to his ear for exactly 37 seconds, then ends the call. No further sound is captured, but when the audio track is enhanced just before the call ends, there's breathing. It doesn't match Daniel's. After that call, Daniel doesn't go back to bed. He disconnects the phone from the wall, removes the SIM from his backup device, powers off both. Then he turns off every light in the apartment, except one, the small desk lamp left on in the corner. The next footage shows him just sitting there, in the chair, awake, still, eyes fixed on the blank wall. He doesn't move again until dawn. At 6:13 a.m., Daniel records a voice memo. The file is named Playback, Warning 1. In it, he repeats the words from the call in his own voice, then adds, I don't remember saying it, but I recognize how I breathe between the words. It's mine. Don't speak, just listen. He's watching. I know that's me. I just don't remember saying it. He sends the voice memo to two people, his sister Leah, and the same friend from earlier. In the subject line, he writes, If I forget, play this back to me. No one replies immediately. It's early, they're asleep. By the time Leah sees it, Daniel has already stopped responding. At 7:02 a.m., another call comes in to Daniel's number, but this time he doesn't answer. Instead, the phone picks up by itself. Automatically, there's no footage of Daniel near the device, just the empty desk, the light still on, the camera recording, a quiet room, and the line connecting. You picked up once. You can't hang up again. At this point, nothing Daniel had experienced before compared to what he was now documenting. The boundary between what he heard and what he remembered had begun to blur, and whether or not he was speaking, something on the other end of that line was listening. What Daniel did next wasn't out of panic, it wasn't impulsive, it was methodical, deliberate, as if he knew, whatever this was, it wasn't going to stop, and if it couldn't be stopped, it had to be documented. He set up a separate terminal, isolated from the internet, no network connection, old hardware, air-gapped. He began keeping logs, time-stamped entries, audio recordings, screen captures, and handwritten notes always dated and initialed. At 9:02 a.m. on May 3rd, he writes, Rewatched the call. My lips don't move, but I hear my voice. And at 10:17, mirrors are lying again. I'm blinking slower than my reflection. He starts filming himself while he sleeps, or rather, tries to. Within 3 days, his sleeping time drops to under 2 hours a night. He starts recording audio constantly, and more importantly, he begins talking to himself. If you're hearing this and it isn't May 5th, then the clock's been changed. If you're hearing this and it isn't May 5th, Daniel begins to split his journal into 2 sections, now and other. In the other section, his handwriting is smaller, lighter, slanted. He underlines one phrase multiple times across the last few pages. He keeps noting subtle changes, in reflections, in shadows, in the delay between speaking and hearing himself speak. He starts referring to himself in third person, sometimes as D, other times as mirror. At 2:41 a.m., May 6th, he writes, "Recorded the hallway again, played it back, 3 voices, not one. One is mine, one matches my old voicemail. The third one doesn't match anything." That night, he places mirrors in every room of his apartment, not for vanity, but to watch. He starts leaving sticky notes next to each one. Check reflection delay. Is mouth moving at the same time? Eyes shift first? The recordings grow stranger. Some footage shows him asleep, but standing, sometimes for hours. In one entry, he writes, "Camera shows me walking to the kitchen, but I never left the bed." When cross-referencing his movement logs with his heart monitor, there are moments where his pulse flatlines for full minutes, but he's upright, moving around, checking lights, writing things down. It's as though something is borrowing him. On May 8th, 12:44 a.m., Daniel records what would be his last known video log. It's only 37 seconds long. His face is half in shadow, his voice low, steady, but slower than usual. He looks into the lens and says, "I think I'm being split." Long pause. There's another me, and it's getting closer. That video was never uploaded. It was found weeks later, buried inside a folder labeled Reverse. May 8th, final attempt. Inside it were 12 audio files, most corrupted, all time-stamped within the same minute, each one exactly 3:03 a.m. What he meant by being split is still debated. Some believe he was describing a mental break. Others point to the recordings. They say if you watch the reflections closely, in frame-by-frame playback, you'll notice the man sitting in the chair isn't always doing the same thing as the one recording him. After days of recording, writing, and watching, Daniel decided to stop reacting and start investigating. He wanted to understand how a phone call could come from his own number, how a voicemail could contain his voice when he never remembered speaking, and why the person leaving messages sounded like him, but didn't speak the way he thought. He connected his phone to a diagnostic tool, ran a trace on the last incoming call. The results returned no tower route, no IP relay, no signal path. Instead, just one entry. He runs the test again, same result. He powers off the phone. Moments later, it rings. Battery pulled, SIM removed, still it rings. At this point, Daniel stops using his primary number. He buys a burner, different carrier, no data, no contacts. 3 days go by in silence. Then at 3:02 a.m., it rings too. He answers. Silence until the faintest breath reaches the receiver. Not heavy, measured, as though someone was waiting for him to speak first. Daniel doesn't say a word, neither does the voice. Then the line cuts. When he replays the call, the audio is blank, but when run through a spectral analyzer, a faint waveform appears, a voice underneath the silence, stretched and distorted, like a reflection in moving water. "You weren't supposed to answer." Daniel doesn't sleep that night. He reviews the call again, analyzes the waveform frame by frame. Each time he slows it down, more layers emerge. First, the voice, then breathing, then a second voice, barely there, whispering the exact same words, a few milliseconds behind the first. It was like hearing two versions of the same sentence, two speakers just out of sync. Daniel begins losing time. He records gaps in his activity logs, moments where he writes things, but can't remember sitting down. He blacks out in the hallway, comes to hours later on the couch with no memory of how he got there. Each time, his camera is already on, already recording, as though someone else had set it up in advance. In one clip, he's asleep, mouth slightly open, but the room isn't silent. A voice is speaking, softly, from just outside the frame. "You weren't supposed to answer." He sits upright, stares at the camera, eyes open, no reaction. He's awake, but vacant. 20 minutes pass like that. Then the video ends, and there's no memory of it on his part. Daniel becomes convinced something else is using the time he's not aware of. And worse, whatever's doing it knows exactly how to operate the cameras. It chooses angles that he wouldn't. It frames the shot perfectly. Sometimes it even labels the files. He reviews one video titled "Final." It shows him standing in front of the bathroom mirror, completely still, for 7 minutes, except for one thing. His reflection is breathing, but he's not. At 3:03 a.m., the lights flicker. The mirror version of him lifts a hand, but the real Daniel does not. From this point forward, Daniel stops referring to himself as "I" in his notes. He begins writing entries as if he's a third-party observer, watching someone he used to be. He's gone again, answered again. "I need to be quicker next time." By now, Daniel was documenting everything: cameras, audio logs, time-stamped notebooks in each room. Any anomaly, no matter how small, was recorded. But then something shifted. The technology around him, the very tools he was using to make sense of the unknown, began acting without him. It started with a single call. He wasn't holding the phone. It wasn't even in the room. But when it rang, the call answered itself. The screen lit up. A call in progress, timer running, no contact name, no sound. He retrieved the footage, checked the surveillance angle that faced the kitchen where the phone had been left charging. In the frame, the phone lights up. No one is near it, no movement, no trigger. The call answers. Then, exactly 12 seconds into the call, the audio glitches. The signal breaks. A shadow flickers across the floor, barely visible, only within a 3-frame interval. Daniel enhances the clip, raises the contrast, zooms in. It's a silhouette pacing slowly behind him. But here's the problem. He's in the shot, facing the camera, completely unaware, and the figure isn't a reflection. It casts no shadow. Its movements don't match his. He rewinds, plays it again, this time watching only the background. The figure passes by once more, then stops. It doesn't vanish. It stands still, just beyond the kitchen doorway. Daniel checked every other camera, every mirror, every corner where glass might catch something unintended. In the hallway footage, at precisely 3 a.m., he walks toward the bathroom. But the mirror doesn't show him. Instead, the glass shows a faint outline of something else. A blurred form, smaller in shape, moving just a step behind the place where Daniel should be. He checks the metadata, no signs of tampering. All cameras confirm the time, the frame rate, the light levels. Daniel watches the footage again, and this time he pauses it just as he passes the mirror. He notices something subtle, the object on the bathroom shelf. A toothbrush. In the footage, it's gone. He checks the shelf in real life. The toothbrush is there, which meant one of two things. Either the reflection is showing a different room, or the room had changed. The next day, his phone begins to glitch again, but it's no longer just phantom calls. The device now records audio on its own. Files appear in his gallery with timestamps. He didn't initiate. He plays one. It's his voice. But it's mid-sentence, as though the file started in the middle of a conversation he never had. But that's not me. It's never been. I'm just... The files grow in number, each one just a sliver, half-thoughts, breathless pauses, sometimes laughter, sometimes silence, stretching nearly 2 minutes before a single phrase plays. One recording, never released publicly, was labeled only by a question mark. Daniel opens it. This time there is no distortion, no glitch, just a voice, calm, clear, and unmistakably his own. You know this isn't the first time. You always forget, and you always come back. But this time, someone else stayed behind. Daniel doesn't sleep that night. He keeps every light on, sets up 4 cameras in his bedroom, one pointing at the bed, one at the door, one at the mirror, and one at the phone. At 2:57 a.m., all 4 feeds begin to flicker. At 3 a.m., the phone lights up. At 3:01 a.m., the bed is empty. At 3:02 a.m., the mirror shows someone standing, but the room is still empty. Daniel writes his last full journal entry that night. The handwriting is less stable than usual. It tilts. It slips off the lines, but the meaning is clear. I'm still in here, but I don't think I'm alone. He begins to wonder if he was ever alone in his body at all. It was around this time, 3 weeks after the first call, that Daniel did something rare. He reached out to someone. Her name was Emily, his younger sister. They hadn't spoken regularly in years. But that night, Daniel sent her a message. Not a text, not an email, a voicemail. The timestamp read 2:11 a.m. Hey, it's me. I know it's late. I need to tell someone what's going on, because I'm starting to think I'm not supposed to. There's a pause in the recording, then static, a faint sound in the background, like water dripping in a distant pipe. I keep seeing things in mirrors that aren't there when I turn around. I hear myself, but I'm not speaking. And when I sleep, if I sleep, I wake up in places I don't remember walking to. He tells her about the recordings, the shadow in the footage, the voice on the line that sounds exactly like him, but never says anything he remembers saying. It's like it's learning me, practicing, and I think it's getting better at being me. Then, in the recording, his voice drops lower, urgent, almost pleading. If you ever see a call from my number, don't pick it up. Please, just don't. There's a long silence. Then the call ends. Emily didn't hear the message until later that morning. She listened to it twice, then tried to call him back. No answer. She left a voicemail. No response. She tried again that evening. Still nothing. Then, at 1:08 a.m. the following night, she received a call from Daniel's number. She hesitated. Her thumb hovered over the screen. She remembered his words, "Don't pick up." But she did. On the other end, nothing. No voice, no breathing, just a low hiss, like wind through a tunnel lined with wires. She said, "Daniel," 3 times. And on the 4th, a voice replied, "This version is already full." She didn't sleep that night. She drove to his apartment the next morning. The lights were off. No answer at the door. No movement behind the curtains. Police were called for a wellness check. They found the door locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry, no struggle, no Daniel. But they did find something else. On the kitchen table, still recording, was Daniel's phone. One open file. The log is just under 10 seconds long. "I think it's here with them." That was the last known moment his voice was recorded. There were no further transmissions, no movement on the account, no trace. His apartment showed no signs of departure. Keys left on the counter, wallet untouched, laptop powered off. But one thing stood out. Every single mirror in the apartment, the one in the bathroom, the hallway, even the mirrored face of the microwave, had been covered in towels, shirts, anything he could find. And his phone, the same device he had tried to destroy just days earlier, untouched, still powered on, still recording. No fingerprints but his, no sign of another person. But when police reviewed the security feed from his hallway camera, they noticed something unusual. At 3:03 a.m., 2 minutes after his final recording, a figure passes the lens. But it isn't Daniel, it looks like him. Same clothes, same gait, same phone in his hand. But he never re-entered the apartment, and the door was never opened. The official report marked Daniel Whitaker as a missing person within 48 hours of last contact. No forced entry, no known enemies, no witnesses, but those closest to him. They refused to accept silence as an answer. 3 friends, Jeremy, Lucas, and Talia, each had known Daniel for years. They described him as cautious, obsessively so, especially when it came to his devices, his routines, his rules. Jeremy was the first to enter the apartment after the police were done. He said the air felt wrong, like stepping into a room that was still catching up to itself. The curtains were shut tight. A thick blanket was duct-taped over the bathroom mirror. The hallway mirror was cracked, just once, straight through the middle. On the kitchen table, Daniel's phone, still on, the screen flickering, cycling through apps and menus on its own. No SIM card, no Wi-Fi connected, still moving. Lucas, who'd helped Daniel install the security system just months before, pulled the camera feeds from the cloud. The footage was intact, at least most of it. The file from the night Daniel disappeared was time-stamped 3:03 a.m., a single uninterrupted clip, 12 minutes long. At first, it looked uneventful. The hallway camera showed the front door, motionless, until the moment it wasn't. The first figure enters the frame at 3:02:48. It's Daniel, or at least it appears to be. He's carrying his phone, same hoodie he was wearing in the call to his sister. He approaches the door, pauses, then unlocks it from the inside. That's when the glitch appears. Frame skips, less than half a second, but enough. In the next frame, there are 2 Daniels, standing inches apart, one facing the camera, the other slightly behind, motionless, both holding phones. No words exchanged, no sudden movement. They simply exist in the same space. Jeremy said it looked wrong, not just eerie, wrong, like the frames didn't agree with each other. As if the footage was trying to make room for something that never belonged there. At 3:04:03, one of the Daniels turns and walks back into the apartment. The other remains in the hallway, staring. And then he walks away. No rush, no hesitation, disappearing down the hallway out of view of the camera. The police reviewed the footage. They saw the same thing. Their official explanation, compression error, possibly a reflection, digital double feed. But Daniel's friends didn't believe it, because reflections don't walk away, and video errors don't unlock doors from the inside. Talia, who had studied digital forensics, tried to isolate the glitch frame by frame. She found something else. In one of the freeze frames, the moment where both Daniels appear, you can catch something in the reflection behind them. A sliver of the hallway mirror, still intact, still uncovered. But the reflection doesn't match. Only one Daniel is visible in the glass, and he isn't moving. The figure in the mirror is standing completely still, eyes open wide, mouth slightly parted, as if about to speak, but the real Daniel in that same frame is facing away. The timestamp matches the exact moment the apartment door locked itself again. No one was seen re-entering. They ran the footage backward and forward dozens of times, tried to recreate the bug, overlay the feed. Nothing explained it. At 3:04:39, the camera shakes, just once, barely noticeable. Then, static, 6 seconds. When the image returns, the hallway is empty, the door is shut, no sign of either figure. Jeremy stayed behind that night to go over Daniel's logs, but he stopped when he saw what was scrawled on the wall beside the desk. A message in red marker, half erased, as though wiped in a panic. What if I was the copy? None of them had an answer, only more questions, and the creeping thought that maybe the Daniel they'd last spoken to wasn't the one they knew. In the weeks following Daniel Whitaker's disappearance, his apartment was combed by authorities, his data mirrored and stored, his remaining devices boxed and tagged, standard procedure. His phone, still functional despite lacking any network or SIM connection, was kept offline at a secure lab facility for digital forensics. That's where Dr. Niles Calder came in, a senior cybersecurity analyst with 20 years in device kernel architecture and exploit mapping. He'd seen manipulated logs, spoofed firmware, hijacked UIs, but he hadn't seen this. At first glance, the device logs looked blank. No recent calls, no texts, battery drain statistics. Erratic, but not impossible. But something sat in the background. A persistent system-level task running on boot. No name, no associated process. Calder traced the anomaly into the kernel memory, buried deep, well below the user interface. A loop, recursive. A signal from the phone, back to the phone. A closed route, no external origin, no identifiable source. A message calling itself. And embedded inside it, a data fragment, an audio file, unlabeled. He extracted it manually. The recording was exactly 12 seconds long, and every second was layered with Daniel's voice. But none of them matched any recordings previously archived from his calls or videos. These weren't duplicates, they weren't edits, they were variations. Same cadence, same vocabulary, different emotions, as if each version of Daniel had reached the microphone from a different place, a different moment. Some of them begged, some screamed. One whispered a string of numbers, another repeated a phrase over and over again. I shouldn't have listened. I shouldn't have listened. I shouldn't have. Calder backed up the audio and ran it through a voice isolation algorithm. He expected to find signal drift, echo layering, maybe corruption. Instead, he found alignment. The audio hadn't been mixed. It had been constructed. Each voice was perfectly spaced, not randomly stacked, but calculated, as if orchestrated into a timeline. Each fragment of Daniel, playing its part in something larger. Then he found the file. It was hidden in the system's restricted log, the kind usually reserved for firmware error codes or device faults. The file was time-stamped exactly 1 week after Daniel's last verified appearance, 3 a.m. It should have been impossible. The phone had been off, the battery removed, no known power source. And yet, there it was. The file contained a single word, answering. No punctuation, no context, just the word. But Calder noticed something else. The word wasn't just written, it was echoed, repeated across the raw disk image, dozens of times, etched into memory blocks where no data should have existed. And each time it appeared, it was formatted slightly differently, slightly degraded, as if copied too many times. A whisper, then a mutter, then a blur. The implication disturbed Calder, and it was the last file he extracted from the phone. He sent one final report to the team. Then he returned the device to its Faraday cage and requested to be removed from the project. No follow-up, no interviews. He declined all further communication. His report closed with a note, just a sentence, no header, no explanation. A loop, once opened, doesn't close by itself. You thought it ended when I stopped talking. But I wasn't the only one listening. The search for Daniel Whitaker ended the same way it began, shrouded in confusion, unanswered calls, and fragmented traces. His apartment remained untouched for months, locked from the inside, his belongings left as if he'd simply vanished. A few days passed, then a week, then a month, still no trace. His friends and family were left to piece together what remained: the recordings, the messages, the strange phenomena. But there was something more, something that would shift the course of this investigation forever. Reports began to surface from all over the world. People, strangers, claiming to have received calls from their own numbers at 3 a.m. It wasn't just one person, it wasn't just a coincidence, it became a pattern. The calls were eerily similar. Each one was marked by the same chilling message: don't answer. No one knew where the calls came from. No one could explain how they knew the names of the recipients. Some of those who answered spoke of hearing faint whispers, distant static. Others, they spoke of a voice too familiar, their own. But then the messages got darker, and they came every month without fail. A post appeared on Reddit every month like clockwork, always from a deleted user. No username, no avatar, just a post, a lone message sent at 3 a.m. The first one read, "It's me. He's inside now. I'm sorry." Then the next month, the message came again. "I think he's here. Please stop answering." And then, "I can hear him. He won't leave." It was like the voices were multiplying. Each post seemed to come from someone different, yet they all carried the same haunting weight, the same underlying fear. The pattern repeated itself. Different users, different accounts, but each time the same message. Each time the same warning, a warning to others who still might be listening. The final post was more cryptic, more desperate. It read, "There's no escaping now. I've answered. It's too late." What was happening? What was driving these people to speak out, to reveal their most terrifying secrets? And most chilling of all, who was listening? The calls, they didn't stop. Each time the phone rang at 3 a.m., it brought with it a warning, but not a warning for the past. A warning for the future. No one knows exactly what happened to Daniel Whitaker. No one knows what happened to the others who received those calls, or what force has tied them together. But some believe the calls haven't stopped, that they never will. Don't pick up, don't answer, it's inside now. Have you ever received a call from your own number? And if you did, would you answer? What would you do? Would you let it ring, hoping it's nothing more than a glitch? Or would you pick up, knowing that the voice on the other side is you? Tell us below, have you ever received a call like this? Or maybe you've experienced something even stranger, something you still can't explain. This isn't the only call that left someone missing. Next time, we'll talk about the cursed voice message that kills in 7 days. A message that, once heard, leaves no escape. Like, subscribe, and share. But remember, sometimes the calls you receive aren't meant for you at all.